You've always been told that central banks simply manage the economy, but almost nobody asks who manages them. And what if the real global power lies not with presidents or parliaments, but with a small network of central bankers operating through hidden deals, secret swap lines, private coordination, and quiet agreements that determine which nations rise and which fall? These invisible mechanisms also determine which currencies dominate and which economies collapse. To understand how these hidden decisions reshape global power and wealth, we need to go back more than a century to a time when money was simple and gold was king. Before the 20th century, every nation played by the same rules. If they spent too much, they lost gold, and if they lost too much gold, their currency weakened. But as wars, trade, and industrialization expanded, world leaders discovered they needed more flexibility than the gold system allowed. Central banks emerged as powerful institutions capable of controlling money, but they quickly realized their power could cause chaos unless they coordinated secretly across borders. That's when the first quiet alliances formed. These alliances were led by Montague Norman of the Bank of England, who traveled under fake names and held private meetings with American and European central bankers. He believed governments should stay out of financial decisions entirely. The Federal Reserve joined this network after 1913, forming early cross-border cooperation long before the public ever learned how central banking worked. But when the Great Depression hit, a lack of coordination among central banks caused a global collapse. This failure taught the world that central banks needed each other far more than anyone understood at the time. This realization set the stage for the Bretton Woods system in 1944. There, the US dollar became the global anchor, and the Federal Reserve quietly gained unprecedented power as foreign nations came to depend on the dollar for stability. This new system was enforced through secretive tools such as currency swap lines. But Bretton Woods had a fatal flaw. The US printed more dollars than it had gold to support. By 1971, President Nixon ended gold convertibility, transforming money into something backed only by trust. This shift gave central banks unlimited power to create currency. It also allowed them to influence exchange rates and intervene silently in markets. What followed was a wave of crises and hidden cooperation among central banks. The inflation storm of the 1970s forced them into more aggressive private coordination. The Plaza Accord of 1985 publicly revalued currencies, but privately engineered massive shifts in global wealth. The Asian financial crisis of 1997 triggered secret emergency loans and behind-the-scenes interest rate alignments. The calm early 2000s were built on low interest rates and huge global liquidity, which later exploded into a disaster. When the 2008 crisis hit, the world witnessed the largest hidden central bank operation in history. The US Federal Reserve secretly issued trillions of dollars in swap lines that propped up foreign banks and governments. This revealed that financial survival depends far more on private central bank relationships than public political decisions. Instead of fixing the underlying systemic issues, central banks doubled down with quantitative easing, zero rates, and increasing liquidity. These policies inflated asset prices, widened wealth inequality, and created even larger bubbles. By 2020, the COVID crisis triggered the fastest and deepest money creation in human history. Central banks injected more liquidity in months than they had in centuries. Private coordination stabilized markets almost instantly. Stock markets surged despite global economic shutdowns. But this unleashed the inflation wave of 2021 to 2023. In response, central banks executed the fastest synchronized global interest rate hikes ever recorded. These decisions were again coordinated privately, not publicly. Now central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are emerging through cross-border agreements that the public rarely hears about. A new financial rivalry is unfolding between the United States and China. This rivalry is not fought on battlefields, but through liquidity networks, currency influence, and secret financial backstops. The same pattern repeats over and over through history. Hidden cooperation creates stability. Stability hides growing imbalances. Imbalances eventually trigger crises. Crises force even deeper hidden cooperation. Every cycle increases the long-term influence of central banks. The first key takeaway is that central banks are not neutral. They are geopolitical power centers. The second takeaway is that global financial stability depends on private deals, not democratic oversight. The third takeaway is that the next crisis will bring even greater central bank coordination, especially through digital currencies. The warning is straightforward. The world is entering a decade of rising debt, rising inflation, rising geopolitical tension, and rising currency instability. Central banks will quietly reshape global wealth and power as they respond to these pressures. If you want to understand how unseen decisions affect your money, your country, and your future, you should like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it. too many people still believe central banks only set interest rates. But the truth is far deeper than anyone wants to admit.